These are the new Legend Tournament from St. Croix Rod casting rods. This family of rods features SE4 plus carbon fiber blanks. These are blanks that are built in-house in Park Falls, Wisconsin, right here in the good old USA with St. Croix's exclusive technologies. And SE4 plus is pretty special stuff. The SE4 graphite's known for its lightweight and its durability, but SE6 is known for its extreme lightweight and extreme action. So rolling both those materials in to create that SE4 plus blank gives these rods extreme action, lightweight, great feel. I'm impressed with the fact that they have a really light clear coat on the blank now, so the blank feels more crisp and alive than the previous models. I love the features on the handles, like these aluminum locking nuts that have absolutely nothing for you to rub your fingers on and get tore up by, yet somehow they grip you on the way up and down. It was a pretty cool technology they used in this. You could tell they put a lot of homework into the locking nuts on these. Premium grade cork on these, Alkanite guides from Fuji. The big feature though is those blanks. They do feel crisp, they feel alive. They did a great job with this family. I'm going to take you through all the models in this family and show you the actions and what exactly they're used for within the casting rods. Starting out in the casting family with the new Legend Tournaments is the workhorse. Might as well start with the workhorse, right? This is probably one of the most popular lengths and actions of a rod, period, in the entire bass fishing world right now. That is the 7.3 medium heavy fast action. To me, that rod can do just about anything. If you're a new angler, if you're a tournament angler and you want to get a bunch of the same rod to do a bunch of different applications to cover your bases, this one here, the workhorse, will get it done for you. I love the name of this rod because it makes a lot of sense. I would use a 7.3, I do use a 7.3 medium heavy fast action rod for a bunch of different applications. Being a fast action, the rod loads up towards the tip of the rod, but not just at the tip. It kind of gets into that top third of the blank, so it gets into some power of the blank. It has some meat behind it, so if you're gonna set the hook with a jig, far away from the boat, offshore in deep water, you have that power to drive that hook home. So I can run heavier line and heavier wire hooks and get that hook driven home. But the tip's fast enough that I can still make accurate casts with it. So if I'm running down a bank with a buzz bait or I'm throwing a swim jig, I can still make even some skips or long accurate casts under some overhanging cover around a laydown. But I got that power to get that fish away from that cover with big line and a big hook. The 7.3 medium heavy fast action workhorse is the perfect rod for you. If you're not 100% sure what you want to use the rod specifically for, you want to use a rod for a whole bunch of different applications. All right, here's a unique one. This is the Flip, Chat, and Crank. All right, this is a 7-foot heavy moderate fast. Sorry, 7.3 heavy moderate fast. So this right here is a rod that's pretty unique. The action, by the way, is exactly what they say it is. It is absolutely a 7.3 medium or heavy moderate fast. That's exactly what it is. That's what it looks like when you're talking heavy moderate fast. It's taken a lot of power for me to get this rod to bend over like this. This rod is for those people like myself that always in the past struggled fishing with moderate action glass rods for moving bait techniques. This rod would be perfect if you're a braid to fluorocarbon angler or a really stiff, heavy line angler for when you're flipping. You want that little bit of a moderate action to let that rod load up a little bit and drive that hook home with the meaty section of the rod. If you're fishing a chatterbait and heavy cover and you don't like that soft feel and you're having a hard time clearing the grass or vegetation off it or getting it through the cover, it's a perfect rod for that. And when they say crank, you're talking big cranks. Those big oversized the square bills now that are getting super popular, Super Shats, Rapala, any sort of big treble hooked oversized crankbait that has big thick gauge hooks that you need to drive them home with authority, this is the rod for you. So this is a moving bait rod or a flipping rod with that sort of moderate action. It's still fast up towards the tip, but it loads up a little slower and it's got tons and tons of power. So there's a lot of cool applications for it. And honestly, I think they kind of nailed it with the name, Flip, Chat, and Crank. Okay, here's a real winner. This one here is the Warhorse. Love the name. It's a 7.5 medium heavy fast action. So the tip's gonna bend up top. not extra fast. It's got getting back into a little bit more backbone where it's gonna get into that backbone up here when the tip bends. But it's 7'5" instead of that 7'3". That little bit of extra length gives you a little bit more leverage when you're setting the hook, and it also gives you a little bit more reach when you're making long distance casting. So that 7'3" medium heavy fast I've talked about in the past as being the most versatile rod, probably the most popular length and action in rods. This one's just reaching it out a little bit further. I think this one's going to be probably one of the most popular rods in this entire lineup because this thing is balanced and feels absolutely beautiful. It's a perfect rod for a lot of anglers like myself that are starting to run braid to a fluorocarbon leader on casting equipment. This thing has a soft enough tip that I can get away with a line-to-line connection and do some flipping stuff, offshore jigs, even a big giant topwater, things like that. This rod with a swim jig and straight braid, it's not too stiff that you're gonna bend hooks out, but it's soft enough to give me an accurate cast and feel what's going on out there. This rod is gonna be a popular one, I bet you, for your football jig anglers, small swim bait anglers, flipping guys, jig fishermen, you name it. I think this thing is gonna be one of the home runs out of this lineup. So like I said, fast action, 7'5", medium heavy power, really cool rod, the Warhorse. All right, we're all in. That's the name of this one. It's the 7-1, medium heavy, fast action, all in. So once again, fast action, it's bending about a third of the way down there. It's a little bit less than a third of the way down, so it's a true fast action. It's getting into the meat of the rod pretty good here. And when I talk about versatile rods, as you've heard me say a bunch in these, that medium heavy fast action really is truly the most versatile power and action in a casting rod. This one being 7'1", it's a little shorter than its other rods in this family. It's going to be a perfect one for fishing closer to the boat with that versatile rod. So if you think about skipping docks, if you think about throwing a spinnerbait around shallow cover, things like that, accurate casting closer to the boat, this would be a home run. I'm starting to run a little bit shorter rods than I used to run in the past for a couple of different reasons. I think that this 7-1 medium heavy fast was always traditionally the most popular kind of length and action in rods. We're starting to see anglers get a little bit longer, but if you want to knock down the weight of the rod a little bit, fish a little closer to the boat, you have a smaller rod locker, this is definitely one to check out. The All-In will do just about anything you need it to do when it comes to bass fishing techniques, and it'll be very versatile for you, and you'll be able to use it for a lot of different techniques. All right, here's a wild one. This is the Power Finesse. This length and action actually came out in the Victory Series previous to these Legend tournaments coming out. This is a wild rod that a lot of us weren't expecting. But this is a product of them being able to do this SE4 Plus blank technology, where they use SE6 carbon fiber that can exaggerate the actions in the blank. This thing's extra fast action, but it's a heavy power rod. This is a really soft tipped rod for a heavy power. Probably the softest tip rod I've felt for such a heavy, powerful blank. So you have a whole bunch of windows opening for you to try different applications with this rod that we haven't really been able to do before. When I bend this rod, I start thinking of all sorts of different things I want to try and do with it. And this one, for example, I think of a weightless Texas rig Senko. I mean, that's always been a hard bait to fish on casting tackle and to get casting distance and accurate casting with it. But you still want that power to drive home a Texas rig bait and run some heavier line. There's a whole bunch of applications to this rod that come to mind when you think of how soft that tip is with all this power. Think about throwing lightweight baits really far or accurately, but still having heavy line and lots of power to drive the hook home. So check out this Power Finesse rod if you want to try some cool new techniques with casting tackle. All right, an old famous one from St. Croix here, the 7-4 heavy Slopping Frog. 7-4 heavy, fast. So you see the tip here is a fast action, bending up in that top third of the blank up there. So you're getting into heavy, heavy backbone on this rod. Heavy power for fishing in that slop or frog fishing. This particular length and action and power has been one of St. Croix's most popular across a whole bunch of their families. And now they have it with their SE4 Plus blank technology with the Legend tournaments. So you're gonna get a lighter weight, more sensitive version of any of the 7-4 heavy, fast slop and frog rods in the past. This thing feels really cool in hand. I bet you this is gonna be a popular one for jig fishermen and people fishing frogs or any sort of heavy matted vegetation, slop as they call it, fishermen out there. So check out this 7.4 heavy fast action slopping frog. Okay, I was warned about this one, that I would freak out and I would absolutely love this one by the guys at St. Croix. This is a 6.8 medium extra fast jerkbait rod. I kid you not, in hand, this is one of the more impressive feeling rods in this entire lineup. If not, in my opinion, the most impressive feeling of this lineup. This really shows off what SE4 Plus is capable of, in my opinion, where they have their SE4 material in the blank with that SE6 high-end carbon fiber in it to exaggerate the action. This is an extra fast action, and this thing's tip feels like it's a light power. It's so fast, so extra fast. It is a super lightweight tip on this thing, so you'll be able to make really long casts with a jerkbait with a really short rod, which allows you to impart action on that jerkbait all day long with a lightweight rod, and you're not hitting the water, hitting the gunnel of the boat, anything like that. I think poppers of this thing too, like smaller lightweight poppers that typically you'd throw on a spinning rod even. I think shad wraps, lots of, almost BFS, which stands for Baitcaster Finesse System. If you want to look that up, you'll see what I'm talking about. That's how wild the tip is on this rod. And it is really a joy to hold in your hand. It's a lightweight, really crisp and alive feeling rod. I have a feeling this will be one of the most popular jerkbait rods, certainly the most popular jerkbait rod by St. Croix to date, and I think across all manufacturers, this is a real winner when it comes to that technique. If you're into high-end cool jerkbaits, and you're a jerkbait angler, you do yourself a favor and check out this one. Okay, one of my favorite techniques there is on planet Earth, flipping. So St. Croix, I've personally challenged those guys a bunch out there in Park Falls, Wisconsin, about flipping rods. This one here is a 7.6 heavy, moderate fast action, and it feels great so far. It's got a fast, moderate tip, so you can see if I just barely give it any pressure at all, it's starting to get a little bit of bend there in the tip, and then it gets into that top third, starts getting into that moderate action the more pressure I put into it. So this is perfect for making those short little pitches, accurate flips into cover, but I can slow load into a fish and get into the meat of this rod when I load it up real heavy. So whether I'm Texaposing a bait or I'm fishing a big jig with a big hook into it, you've got all the power in the world of this rod without having such a stiff, overpowered rod where it's hard to make those accurate flips all day long. I'm pretty impressed with this one, to be honest with you. I fish a lot of braid to a fluorocarbon leader, even in that flipping technique. And this tip is soft enough on this rod that I'm not going to be worried about blowing up that fluorocarbon at the end of that braided line. But it's got enough power that if you load into them with a big oversized powered reel, if you got something with a big 100mm handle on and you're really cranking and dragging that fish out and got that rod loaded up all the way, you've got tons of endless power here. You could flip 1 ounce stuff in heavy cover with this thing, and you could flip really lightweight Texas rigs around with this rod as well. Very versatile flipping rod, very impressive to see a new flipping rod from St. Croix Rod. So that was the casting models of the Legend Tournament family from St. Croix Rod so far. I'm sure there'll be more to come, but that was a whole bunch of them as it is, and they're really impressive. There's some real super winners in there so far without having me on the water, and I'm sure there'll be more winners the more we get a chance to get out on the water and fish with all the different models. But so far, the jerkbait rod's blowing my mind. That Power Finesse rod is super cool. I'm gonna find a reason to use that for a bunch of applications. The new flipping rod is really cool and feels alive in your hand. So check out a whole bunch of the different models that suit your needs from the new Legend Tournament family from St. Croix Rod.